Since then, things have snowballed into a complete worldwide conspiracy of every government and corporate entity. He adheres to the notion that the NWO was ruled by the anarchists. Ruled by the anarchist. So the Antichrist apparently rules the NWO, who will eventually be defeated by Jesus after the books of Revelation have taken place. Normal stuff. Good. Thanks, Tucker Carlson, for bringing this to the forefront. All right, I just gotta see this. I haven't actually watched it yet. It's only 2 minutes long. Apparently, Tucker Carlson has praised Sandy Hook conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, and this is just kind of wild to me, because a couple days ago I had Knowledge Fight on the show. Knowledge Fight, also podcast. It's all about Alex Jones, and I brought up the fact that I really feel nowadays that there is a Jonasance going on, where like he's appearing on every other YouTuber's show, he's appearing on podcasts, he's appearing on fucking leftist podcasts. TM, Red Scare had Alex Jones on, and he's become like Nicolas Cage, a living meme. He knows he's a meme, he knows he's very highly memeable, and so he'll, you know, do that kind of stuff like Alex Jones is always right, Alex Jones is always right, you know, all that kind of shit. But now that we have the largest mainstream news host on television praising him, I think it's kind of a scary time.
So from its very inception, the January 6th committee has been an exercise in armed political intimidation. How did it start? You may have forgotten. Congress formed the committee after several members of the U.S. Capitol Police, the same people responsible for protecting members of Congress, anonymously commanded them to do it. So effectively, it was a ransom note. Prosecute our political opponents. That's an order from your bodyguards. Amazingly, they did it. So from the very first day, the January 6th committee was never about gathering information. Obviously, Congress already has the information. Nancy Pelosi knows exactly how many federal agents were in the crowd that day. She won't tell us. Pelosi could release thousands of hours of videotape evidence from January 6th. She refuses to do that. So whatever else this is, don't let them lie to you. This is not a fact-finding effort. This is a highly obvious attempt to punish critics of the Democratic Party. And for months, that's exactly what the committee has been doing. Using the pretext of January 6th, Biden's Justice Department has indicted former Trump advisor Steve Bannon. What? What was his crime exactly? Oh, talking about election fraud on a radio show. That's illegal now. Pelosi's January 6th committee had him arrested. Liz Cheney, by the way, who is being used as a Republican cover for all of this, stood back and watched it happen. Liz Cheney should be ashamed, but she's become far too degraded for shame, unfortunately. And Bannon, by the way, is not the only prominent Republican who might go to jail. The committee has now subpoenaed several former Trump advisors, as well as the fiancé of another. They've even subpoenaed Roger Stone yet again. Where was Stone on January 6th? He was in a hotel room as the Capitol was being breached. He had literally nothing to do with it. But it doesn't matter. He's criticized Joe Biden. He could be going to jail again. Now the committee has decided to shut down one of the most popular journalists on the right, Alex Jones. Yes, journalist. Jones is often mocked for his flamboyance.
There it is, the most popular journalist, one of the most popular journalists on the right, Alex Jones. He's officially a journalist. Good for Jones. I'm glad he's a journalist now. So, by the way, what was the list we were going through the other day? 9/11 truther, that one's in there. The person who propagated Pizzagate, or one of the largest figures who propagated Pizzagate, that one's in there as well. What else we got? Oh yeah, telling the parents of Sandy Hook that in fact they were lying and that their kids weren't real. They were crisis actors, which again led to harassment campaigns that led to the suicide of one of those parents. That one's in there too. Yeah, journalist.
But the truth is, he has been a far better guide to reality in recent years. In other words, a far better journalist than, say, NBC News National Security Corps.
Oh, I'm so happy this happened, like, with less than a week to go before I talked to Glenn Greenwald about Tucker Carlson. I'm very, this is, thank you, Tucker. Thank you. I don't often say that. I don't often get to say that, but that's, that's good timing. That's really good timing.
Correspondent Ken Delanian or Margaret Brennan of CBS. Alex Jones never bought the Russia hoax, not for a second. And if Jones sat down with Tony Fauci, he would ask him real questions, just as journalists are.
Alex Jones bought the idea that the word pizza in Hillary Clinton's emails was a secret code for children and or pedophiles, and that they were actually running a cabal, and that's his words, not mine, of pedophile cults where they would get children in these areas for consumption, by the way. They would usually either molest them or consume them, one of the others. Jones believed that and talked about that. I mean, if you want to highlight the things that Jones gets right, you can, and you can make a narrative out of that, and then, sure, he might agree with you on some things, but, I mean, if you are a journalist, you should also do the due diligence of explaining all the things he gets wrong, of which there's many. Now I feel like I have to go through a list of them. I'm going to have to pull up the Alex Jones file.
Are supposed to do. He wouldn't just slobber all over him. But Alex Jones makes fun of Joe Biden, so the January 6th committee is threatening him with prison. Now, the irony here, and there are many layers of irony here, but the main one is that Alex Jones isn't simply innocent of inciting crime on January 6th. Alex Jones actively worked to prevent crimes from taking place on January 6th. We're not running interference for Alex Jones, and we're not guessing about it. We happen to know this for a fact because we looked into it in some detail for Patriot Purge. It's our 3-part documentary series on Fox Nation. Here are the facts.
Here are the facts. My word. Conspiracy theories. I'm like a chimpanzee in a tree, jumping up and down, warning other chimpanzees that I see a big cat coming through the woods. I'm the weirdo because I'm sitting in a tree going ooh, 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 ah, ah, ah. Okay, so devil-worshipping pedophiles basically run the New World Order. They love death and they love killing babies. Quote of Alex Jones. They've got operations so big, grabbing your kids, the CPS and Right Out Child Protection Services, they're on the jet to one of 24 countries, and they're slaved out. A lot of times when they hit 25 years old, they, 10,000 men have had sex with them. They've had 30 to 40 abortions. They've been used up in ways that are so hellish you can't even imagine. Slams table. They just walk them right out, shoot them in the back of the head, and throw them into a vat of acid. That's how they roll. Just massive, massive murder operations. Alright. Jones is the most visible and literally the loudest proponent of the grand unified conspiracy theory, where just about every current event can be tied into the NWO's nefarious schemes. According to Jones' broadcasts and various documentaries, the NWO has its roots in biblical times, and in part they work for Satan. He later branched out with the inclusion of the Bilderberg Group, because, of course, Skull and Bones, Freemasons, the Rothschild banking family, because, of course, and the Illuminati came to power. Since then, things have snowballed into a complete worldwide conspiracy of every government and corporate entity. He adheres to the notion that the NWO was ruled by the anarchists. Ruled by the anarchist. So the Antichrist apparently rules the NWO, who will eventually be defeated by Jesus after the books of Revelation have taken place. Normal stuff. Good. Thanks, Tucker Carlson, for bringing this to the forefront. Frankly, a real NWO transporting him into the Loom Asylum to radio show host in order to cast doubt on conspiracy theories doesn't seem so crazy. The thing with people who are like this far gone, as Alex Jones is, always leads me to wonder, like, Alex, if you are allowed to say this stuff publicly, what power does it really lend to these groups that apparently are all seen and all powerful, and yet they simply haven't been able to catch the one person who has got all of their schemes on file, who says out loud to an audience previously on a lot of really large major platforms, you're the one thing they can't destroy is you, Alex Jones? I mean, that makes you more powerful than these groups themselves, honestly. Inside jobs and false flags. Alex Jones has believed 9/11 was an inside job. The London bombings, yep, another inside job. The conspiracy theories also featured prominently in a documentary called Terror Storm. 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami was just a man-made disaster, but he thought it was something else. Hurricane Katrina, what did he think it was? Oh, it was an opportunity to test out the FEMA concentration camps. Interesting. Sandy Hook, we're all pretty well aware of that now. Government-sponsored tornadoes, cool. The 2013 Moore tornado is typical. He confirms that the evil Federalist Gummit is capable of causing and steering such a storm with their weather weapons. He stopped just short of saying that the Moore tornado was one of them. Rachel Maddow, who he claims is a lesbian, he says is a lesbian news anchor, tore Jones a new one and asked whether Jones' Republican backers would finally drop him like a rotten tomato. In it, she made jokes about wasps hiving underneath the UN. As a ridiculous example of Jones' conspiracy mindset, Jones responded in his usual gentlemanly self by calling his video response Teaching Mr. Maddow, and promptly removed it afterwards, in which he calls her a lying witch and basically threatens her life if there is a revolution. The Boston Marathon bombing? What did he say about that? 2 terrorists bombed the Boston Marathon. 3 people died. 170 were injured. Like a Pavlovian dog, Alex Jones generated a conspiracy in which he suspects there were patsies of the government. Interesting. The eldest terrorist was obsessed with conspiracies, and it seems that his delusions on the subject played a part in the bombing. Worse yet, it seems like he got a large portion of his crackpot information from none other than InfoWars, one of Jones' 2 websites. It seems in a twisted irony that Alex Jones himself had a hand in causing this government-orchestrated bombing. Oh, wow. In addition, Jones insisted that missing Brown University student Sunil Tripathi had something to do with the bombings. This particular bit of false information was especially regrettable, if not outright disgusting, by the fact that Tripathi has since been found dead. Jesus, Jones. Man, it never ends. San Bernardino attack, he said it was a false flag. 2016 Orlando massacre. Jones initially argued that this massacre was a false flag terror attack. Later, Jones switched to blame America's LGBTQ community, of course, because why not, for allegedly supporting the migration of extremist Muslims into the country. That seems like a just for good measure. I gotta be extra bigoted here and throw them in with all this, I guess. Unfortunately, Jones was never open-minded enough to consider the idea that Orlando was a false flag by gay extremist Muslims. 2017, Las Vegas shooting. He said it was a false flag, initially claiming that it was Antifa or ISIS. 2018, Marjorie Stoneman, Douglas High School massacre. He said it was the globalists. The government is using chemicals to create gay people. It's putting estrogen mimickers in juice boxes and water bottles. See, this is so I don't know if all of y'all know about the meme now, the Alex Jones was right stuff. And it's like, it's floating around the internet. They're constantly saying this kind of shit. Like, oh, Alex Jones was actually right. Alex Jones was actually right. And they usually point to the gay frogs part because they're like, well, he technically was talking about something that it found in chemicals can change the sex of frogs, which may be predisposed to already changing. Like, these are hermaphroditic frogs. And based on the amount of this chemical that the hermaphroditic frogs are exposed to, it can somehow change whether or not they have, different genitals, things like that nature. And they use this as an example. They never bring up the fact that he talked about the gay bomb. The government is using chemicals to create gay people. It's putting estrogen mimickers in juice boxes and water bottles. This makes men want to wear women's clothes and makeup, and no one will have children. It's all ultimately designed to depopulate the world. Like, it's the opposite of the meme, okay? It's like he's very rarely correct. He's often very wrong. And for someone who speaks for a living, you would think that a couple of the things would stick more often than not. But like, if you just isolate the 1 or 2 things where what he said had a slight basis in like actuality, well then, yeah, sure, absolutely. Gay frogs, following up to the gay bomb, the government and Big Pharma are using chemicals to make the frogs gay. Oddly enough, this is the one thing that Jones is actually sort of kind of not really wrong about. The chemical runoff is creating hermaphroditic animals, except for the part where the results could be replicated. Let's not forget the whole point was that to make out, oh, look what's happening, it's the frogs, water must be making humans gay too, because we all know human biology is identical to frog biology. Justin Bieber. What did you think about Justin Bieber? They tell your kids that you gotta love Justin Bieber. And then Bieber says, hand in your guns, pass the Cybersecurity Act, and, the police state is good, and then your children are turned into mindless vassals. They end up looking like a twit instead, like they end up looking up to Thomas Jefferson or Nikola Tesla. They end up looking to Magellan. Oh, yeah. I mean, kids, Magellan is a lot cooler than Justin Bieber. I mean, he circumnavigated with one ship the entire planet. Magellan. He was killed by wild natives before they got back to Portugal, and then when he was there was like 11 people alive or 200 something crew. The entire ship was rotten down the waterline. So Justin Bieber is pure. Oh, they want to shut you down. Justin Bieber is pure evil. He's tyranny people. He's taking your intellect, your soul. They're giving you the Michael Jordan of Biebers. Victims of the Huntress Thompson, Gary Webb, Princess Diana, and Anthony Scalia, what? And Prince were all murdered to cover up what they knew about the New World Order or whatever. What? He's one of those people? I've seen those online, by the way. I've seen those online where they talk about the New World Order, and they say that the New World Order killed Prince and Huntress Thompson and a bunch of other people because they knew too much about them. I didn't know that he was in that circle, though. The nerds are out to get everybody. I tell you, folks, nerds are one of the most dangerous groups in this country because they're going to end up running things, but they still hate everybody because they weren't the jocks in high school. Oh my god, he's still stuck in that fucking high school mentality. Well, there's either the nerds or the jocks. And if you're not a nerd, you're a jock. And if you're not a jock, you're a nerd. And the jocks bully the nerds. But if the nerds take over, They play little dirty games on everybody, begins pointing to his head. They use their brains to hurt people, and I'm aware of them. Okay, I see you, you little rats. I see you, you little rats trying to control your mind with your nerd powers. You'll never do that. You'll never get me, nerds. He considers himself to be a jock. That's fairly obvious. I mean, we've all seen the shirtless orange and red photos. He believes in fluoride woo, which is just pretty obvious. Fluoride woo, if you don't know, by the way, everybody, is this conspiracy theory that fluoride is cancer. Fluoride has been shown in high concentrations to be carcinogenic. Therefore, we are intentionally putting fluoride in our water supplies to kill and depopulate the earth. Governments are doing that. The reason they do that is because it's shown in studies to have very beneficial effects to the poorest members of society who might not either have knowledge about proper teeth care or have access to dentistry. So a cheap thing you can do is putting very small amounts of fluoride in your water supply so that the same supply that everyone drinks, it helps out the very poorest members of society. That's the reason sometimes people do it. But the problem with fluoride woo is that it grew to such a degree that certain municipalities and townships actually had like people angry enough to demand they stop doing that because they were convinced by people like Alex Jones that they were in essence doing it to depopulate the earth. That's one of the things. So please don't buy into the fluoride woo. Second Civil War. In 28, Jones claimed that Democrats were plotting to begin a second American Civil War. He didn't say how or specify the motives. He gave the exact date, a common mistake made by inept physicists and prophets, as July 4th of that year. When the date passed without incident, the internet and Twitter exploded with memes mocking his ill-conceived prediction. Never give a date. Never be specific. Everyone, if you want to be a false prophet, you can never be specific because people will know you're false. So never, you don't have to line it on. Just be vague, you know. I'm thinking sometime in the third or fourth quarter, but we'll see. Their plans change cohesively all the time. He thinks atheists are occultists, that they worship Satan. Well, that one's true. Hail Satan. The world is ruled by Satanists, and Satan is real. But these atheists and people say, oh, this is a quote, but atheists and people say, I don't believe in the devil. Well, it doesn't matter if you believe in the devil or not. There are people who rule the planet, and they believe in the devil. Satan is real. Period. End of story. Carrie Fisher was killed to boost sales. Wow. Holy fuck. Alex, you monster. Leave Carrie Fisher out of this. She's the national treasure. Power Obamacare control. What? Powerball and Obamacare and gun control are all related because gambling and political discourse are both addictive to dopamine-heavy activities. Can someone please copy and paste this to all the people who are hosting Alex Jones and doing the Alex Jones is right memes? I'm looking at you, Joe Rogan, Red Scare Podcast, fucking Tim Pool, all of you motherfuckers. Like, Jesus. I see the Knowledge Fight interview had a lasting effect. No, I was just covering a story about how Tucker Carlson, like, this happened yesterday or today. Tucker Carlson came out, not only gave validity to the fact that Alex Jones considers himself a journalist, he called Alex Jones one of the most prominent right-wing journalists. Those are the words that came out of Tucker Carlson's mouth. And then went on to say that Alex Jones has been proven right oftentimes, and that he was right about Russiagate and other stuff like that. Power Obamacare control, Powerball and Obamacare and gun control. We already talked about that one. There's liberal lesbians. Most of the so-called liberal lesbians are in this group. They just want to have the guy with the duck-ass haircut and the James Dean outfit. And sure, James Dean wasn't slapping girls around, but they want to be the ones slapping the girls around, and statistically it shows it. I'm not blaming all of the lesbians, but it shows that most of these are the butch lesbians. They want to be the guy smacking the hot chick around. They think that's manly, and a lot of chicks, they see it because no man will do that to them. And I'm not saying it's good if a man does that, but some women like it, and if they can't find a man to smack them around, well, they found a girl that's going to do it real good, knock them upside the head, and they have 50 Shades of Grey about the sexy rich guy that's going to chain you up. A lot of self-reporting going on here, Alex, because you're going to go get chained up that one time. They're going to put on that devil mask and the piggy mask, and they're going to say, now I'm going to torture you for about 6 weeks. See, it's not fun when it's not in his voice and his cadence, right? It's not funny anymore. All of a sudden, you're like, holy shit, that's horrifying. That's absolutely horrifying. Jesus Christ, Alex Jones, you're less of a meme and more just a horrible, horrible human being. They They want to strap you down and take the buzzsaw, blah, blah, blah. Or I don't need this hate speech anymore. Hillary Clinton is going to start a nuclear war. She's a pedophile. She runs a pedophile cult. Morning Joe hosts. They're like gonorrhea or syphilis. You have to understand, folks, they literally want to destroy you, okay? Do you realize how evil these guys are? I mean, that one's, in terms of all these conspiracy theories, not that bad. Alex Jones prefers to wear hats made of aluminum foil. That one is a joke. He has said out loud, Paul Watson and I are gay lovers. We are gay reptoid space alien lovers. I think he's parodying that. Anyways, there you go, everybody. There's Alex Jones for you. So yeah, it's really, really scary that someone like, well, I mean, we don't need to tiptoe around this. Tucker Carlson is the most popular news program, late night cable news show on television, the most watched. He won. He has won the culture wars. It's Tucker Carlson, and Tucker Carlson is going to give validity to Alex Jones being anything other than complete batshit, like just completely batshit. That's dangerous. That is dangerous. Tis not a good thing.
This will come down to who can deliver the lower propensity and mid propensity voters.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Just, we will build a ladder to heaven to deliver you the daily news. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are your most humble of clownish jesters. To our lords, Trevor R. and Alexander Thaler, you have our undying fealty. To our knights of the round table, Nate, that one guy, Hagbird Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariana McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Ants Are Still Running the World, Coulter Smith, Tom Groh, Val 9000, Jenna Tal, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Riley and Anna, Omni, Poodlehawk, The Tim Caucus, Multimondi, Trevor Janis, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojak, Saren 42, Chronic to Hemphog, Catherine, Radical Maniac, Ramon Acosta, Incosin, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Political Puppy, Andreas Chiringuito, Zach Christensen, Josh Mickelson, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We shall meet you in the tavern, and we raise a drink, and we salute you.